For today's hearing, we are joined virtually by the following resource persons. From the Department of National Defense, we have Yusek Cardozo Luna, Yusek Ricardo David, Yusek
Just a moment. Can you
Cesar.
raise your hand, please? Would the gentlemen raise their hands when their name is called, please? Thank you.
Um,
Go ahead, Claire.
okay. Yusek Cardozo Luna, Yusek Ricardo David, Yusek Cesar Llano, Yusek Reynaldo Mapagu, Yusek Arnel Duco. From the Armed Forces of the Philippines, we are joined virtually by um, Rear Admiral Adelius Bordado, Brigadier General Alex Luna,
Ano yun?
Brigadier General Jeffrey Hechanova, MGen Pelayo Valenzuela, MGen Adriano Perez Jr., MGen Reynaldo Aquino, Brigadier General Oropesa, Lieutenant General.
Claire MGen is Major General. Please
Okay,
address
so,
him.
okay, sir, sorry. Major General Reynaldo Aquino, Major General Nathaniel Casem, Brigadier General Oropesa, Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade Jr. We also have with us from the Philippine Military Academy, Vice Admiral Alan Ferdinand Cusi. We have Lieutenant General Edelberto Adan, former Ambassador Ramon Farolan, Vice Admiral Emilio Marayag, Major Renato Valencia. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. I believe the following senators are in this what do you call it? Voice conversation by computer. Senator Frank Drilon is here, our minority floor leader, and the Honorable Senator Amy Marcos is here. Please acknowledge because I can't see you all. I already Senator Drilon, you're there, right, Frank? Yes, I can see him now. And of course, Senator Amy Marcos, are you there? I saw Amy Marcos earlier.
I'm here. I'm here, Bob.
Good to see you
Yes.
again.
Again, yes.
Yes, both of you. Are there any other senators that I have not acknowledged? Good. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished generals, retired and active, admirals, retired and active. As I pointed out, we were going to discuss SBN 1785. The title I've already read. Per agreement in our last hearing, September 20, 2020, the Armed Forces of the Philippines have already submitted their simulation report on the proposed measure. I had been badgering the Secretary of Defense, Del Lorenzana, on this, and I thank him. He did call me that he had a meeting with the president, sudden meeting with the president. He wanted to attend. He promised he was going to attend, but at the last moment, he had to excuse himself. We will miss him. Some of the comments proposals are as follows, and I'd like everybody to comment afterwards. First, the proposed 0.1% involving the size of the armed forces officers via the enlisted men will diminish the number of general officers and field officers in the AFP and consequently reduce the AFP needed personal strength. And then per PD 1908, the age of appointment in the JAGS, as opposed to the Judge Advocate Office, MC, I don't know what MC is. Marine Corps, perhaps? And CHS shall not be less than 25 nor more than 40. Relatedly, the current law on retirement, specifically PD 1638 as amended by PD 1650, does not explicitly allow those officers commissioned under PD 1908 to complete 20 years active service for purposes of retirement. Thus, they recommend inclusion of provision to allow officers commissioned under PT 1908 to complete 20 years. The Armed Forces of the Philippines maintains its position of retaining the 56 years of age of 30 years of active service, whichever is later, as a compulsory retirement age for officers and enlisted personnel, regardless of rank. Inclusion of transitory provision that will specify those who will be covered by the new law, and the Armed Forces will concurs with the provision prescribing tenure in grade for enlisted men. I would like to reiterate the purpose and the vision behind this bill, which is to put stability in the Armed Forces of the Philippines and create the practice of revolving door chiefs of staff in the presently, because it is so inimical to the public interest, because it shows lack of continuity and stability and consistency in the leadership of our armed forces, so that policies cannot be made and continued, and that there's always somebody changing the vision before it even gets started. So the protectors of our country, of our citizens, must not allow political consideration to come into the picture, because this creates a situations which allow political patronage and accommodation, promotion that favors personalities over the security and defense of the nation. The Filipino soldier is a professional. He does not rely on the largesse or the personal favor of the president, or the appointing authority, or even the commission appointment. He must be appointed on the basis of his fitness, his conduct, his integrity, his ability to lead, and his ability to be able to make sure that he will be loyal to the Republic first and foremost, and not to any man.
Yes. I was wondering, starting.
Uh, there's somebody in the peanut gallery. Can you please behave yourself? Thank you. So further, the president of the AFP should be, the present complement of the AFP should be given ample time and security of tenure. I think it refers to the chief of staff, in order for them to develop, test, and implement effective reforms and meaningful long-term plans and programs to strengthen and modernize the armed forces of the Philippines. It is imperative not only for the chief of staff, but also for the key officers, such as the major service commanders, who shall form the joint chiefs of staff. These are the Joint Forces Commanders of the Unified Commands. The Commandant of the Philippine Marine Corps, the Commandant of the Commander of the Special Operations Command, the Commandant of Cybersecurity Command, and the Superintendent of the Philippine Military Command Academy under this proposal. These key officers constitute the core leadership of the AFP, who should hold positions that require specialized skill and expertise that the must have been given time and be given time. In other words, to ripen into maturity and solidness, or institutionalizing it, or institution making insofar as leadership is concerned. Likewise, the Senate Legal Counsel, whom we consulted, submitted their position on the constitutionality of SBN 1785, and concluded that the same is constitutional. The legal counsel opined that Congress may enact a law prescribing for a specific retirement age of military officers, or even for enlisted personnel, similar to or even different from the existing retirement of age in the armed forces of the Philippines. As worded in the Constitution, laws on retirement of military officers shall not allow extension of their service. Hence, Congress may pass a new or different retirement law for AFP officers, provided that such law will not contain a provision that will permit an extension of their military service. This is called from the discussions of the Constitutional Commission, which says as follows: Mr. Hamir. Mr. Hamir was a fellow delegate in the 1971 Constitutional Convention, of which I had the privilege of being a member of. And again, he is now a member of the 1987 Constitution. I have one question, according to Mr. Hamir, for the proponent, Commissioner Davide. May I know whether under this formulation that the gentleman has just stated, Congress will thereafter be prohibited from passing any law setting, for example, that the retirement age shall be 60? The answer of Mr. Davide is no. Madam President, as a matter of fact, is very flexible. Congress
Proceed.
may
Make
provide
it
that the
louder
retirement age
so
should be
that
60. Uh, I think it is Ambassador Farolan, can you please mute yourself? Thank you. This is very flexible. Congress may provide that the retirement age is 60, provided one has served for 25 years, 30 years, or 40 years. It could reduce the retirement age to 50 years. But in any of such cases, the law cannot provide as exemption. For us to be able to harmonize the provisions that need to be harmonized, the committee hearing is now called to order. Are there any comments on what has just been read? I still maintain that soldier generals should go up to the age of 65, but the chief of staff uh, can be only appointed for 3 years and must retire unless he is extended by the president during times of war or emergencies. That is the position of the chair. I think 56 is too young. And if I may just add, there have been many ambush cases, for example, as told to me by a general officer whom I respect, probably because hindi naluto yung mga general na nalagay o magkamisan doon, hindi nila nakakabisa yung kanilang mga pinagsisilbihan, kaya naiisahan sila ng mga kalaban ng gobyerno. Kaya it's important that we get that maturity, that you know, sufficient training so that they will be able to create judgment under fire, a good observation of the terrain and the situation beforehand, so that maturity will be put to good use and prevent loss of life and the wounding of men and women of the armed forces of the Philippines. So I think 56 is too young. But of course, anyway, there will be what we call the attrition period, and the attrition period or the attriting will eventually help really keep the good and retire those that are maybe good but not as good enough to go on to a longer term in the military. That allows us to gain the experience, to preserve the experience of the people who are not attrited. I think the same goes for the enlisted men. With the enlisted men, it will be 56. If I was watching a movie not too very long ago called Operation Pacific, starring John Wayne, and when one of the chiefs died, non-commissioned officer, I never forgot that. I saw that a long, long time ago when I was a kid, and I saw it again recently. And he said, and I quote, after the guy died, he said, well, before he took care of you, meaning to the chief who just been killed, he took care of Larry. Before Larry, he took care of me, and before me, he took care of Pop. Chiefs have been taking care of this man's navy for a long time. It is the non-commissioned officers that take care of the army, of the navy. They are the liaison. They are the ones that show the inexperience and introduce them to the respectable leaders of the military. They're also the listening post, the ears of the and eyes and ears of senior officers. I was a mayor of Olongapo. I grew up there, and I remember, and I was always fascinated by. They would have chief of the boat, that command, chief of the boat, and I was told by my Filipino friends in the Navy that they say the non-commissioned officers, especially the master chief or the chief of the boat, sometimes are like lieutenant commanders or even commanders, and the admirals usually listen to them more than the younger officers of the U.S. Navy while they're on the underway. And to me, that is very important. I've seen that happen. because the experience garnered by the ensigns, and this should be an institution in our army, in our military, in our navy. It must be drilled into the heads of the non-coms that they are part of the weeding process of making sure that the continuity of professionalism and excellency in service is undertaken. I can see this, for example, when even among the Navy SEALs of the U.S. Navy, most of them are non-commissioned officers who are serving in very, very dangerous assignments. And they're chosen for their maturity, their leadership, their experience, and their hard work. And these are just some of the comments. I agree that the transitory provision should this should start right at the year 2021, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen. And those are just some of the comments. Now as I said, we have Senate President Drilon, Minority Floor Leader now, who can give comments. Normally, I'd go ladies first, but in this particular case, I would say age before beauty. So, Senator Drilon, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Thank you very much. I will let that commendation on my age stay on the record. Well, yes, yes, Mr. Chairman, I am interested in this particular issue, and I'm glad that the committee is having a second hearing. As you are aware, Mr. Chairman, the Senate is also considering a bill, consolidate a number of bills which were filed on the matter of the retirement of the burden on the national budget due to the retirement obligation of the government on our men and women of the armed forces. The issues are very complicated, and a solution, we are trying to look for a solution. And one of those issues that is being looked at would be the retirement age, because indeed the present retirement age is a cause of the very heavy burden on the national budget. We're not saying that this is wrong. We are saying that this is something that we have to confront. How do we solve this? During the committee hearing, the resource persons testified that as of today, over 113 billion pesos is in the national budget for the retirement of both the AFP and the PNP. And according to the testimony of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, this allocation increases by about 6% every year because of the number of retirees who are increasing, the number of the indexation issue, etc. So there is an effort on the part of the committee led by Senator Lacson to see how we can come up with a just solution to this issue. And again, I repeat, the matter of the retirement plays a crucial issue in the resolution of the problem because of the retirement age really is a factor that we must consider. Right now, part of the menu of the solutions being considered is the GSIS fund, GSIS to administer a retirement fund. And the issue also is the over 5 trillion pesos that right now is being looked at as that we have to fund for the past service liabilities of our armed forces and PNP personnel. So these are all varied issues that must be looked into. Now there is a technical committee composed of the national treasurer and the GSIS, who, together with some other technical people, are working on various simulations on the burden on the national budget, how we can resolve this. So this is this context that I'm glad that Senator Gordon again called this to a second public hearing to further clarify whatever issues there are with our armed forces and the Philippine National Police. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me this opportunity to make an opening statement. Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome, sir. Senator Aimee, do you have a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Like our minority leader, I am grateful that the second hearing has been conducted, especially as Secretary Lorenzana appears to have joined us. I'm not certain, but I saw that earlier. I think that having heard so many of our experts, Apo Farolan, General Devilla, General Abu, General Adan, General Kusi also from the PMA, and the other officers who so kindly lent us their wisdom and experience at the last hearing, I am thinking that perhaps not a mere compromise on the age is necessary, but perhaps to help us along would be a determination of the personnel management system. Is it properly aligned with the retirement system? Is it indeed flexible enough, diverse enough, inclusive enough, progressive enough, such that upon retirement, we really have had the full service of our officers? Ideally, the personal management system should have the capacity to adjust to the force size, whether on the basis of men or just the officers, and the organizational structure in a timely fashion. The personnel management should allow for variations in career lengths across the wide spectrum of military skills. Which skills, after all, do we really want? Because things have changed in the military. We need IT experts, we need health specialists, doctors, engineers. Are these the people we want to recruit? At the same time, should we not begin to think of variations in career lengths in the spectrum of military skills, as well as begin to open our eyes to the possibility of sabbaticals? Sabbaticals so that they can return for training, longer assignments, or tours of duty. Generally encourage the careers of younger officers destined to be senior officers. Finally, of course, there's the compensation scheme that has always been a problem. Perhaps if we can align the personal management system such that it better reflects the needs of the military, we can finally come to a retirement system or a retirement age that meets our requirements. And thence to address the humongous problem of the pension and retirement fund that at the moment seems overwhelming despite the actuarial studies of the experts at GSIS, our military, as well as the finance managers of our government. That's all, Mr. Chair. Perhaps we can have a look at all of those issues too, and thank you for providing us the opportunity to review all these aspects of age in the military. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open the table to comments. I just have a few questions on the matter of the retirement on of the sabbatical. Senator Marcos, there is such a thing as time in grade, which means that somebody has a time, for example, 6 years for a first lieutenant to make captain, and
That's right.
so forth and so on. So that should include it when he is part of sent to, let's say, Fort Bragg or Australia.
Good.
That should be part of his tenure in grade, if I'm not mistaken, if that is the correct term. Um, He has
Yes,
6 years.
that's correct. That's why perhaps we should be more open to that sort of arrangement, given that that would be especially attractive to those with unique skills and the professionals in the military corps.
That is the chairman's view. That's why the chairman's view is that should be considered. It will not be taken against him if he is selected to go to an improvement course, such as being there in Fort Bragg for special cases. Of course, like Senator Dillon said, this will have a very heavy impact on pension, and I think this eases if we approve this. This eases to a certain extent the pension pressures, but we still can't get away from the uh, pension situation. But this is again a series of
That's
laws which I hope we can continue on. Perhaps one of these will be including ROTC, or for that matter, even the matter of conscription of let's say 2 years in service by our young people as they have in Singapore. In Korea, I don't know whether that will pass here in our country. I hope it does. I wouldn't mind having my grandchildren serve in the military. I think it's a great equalizer. But then again, that's predicting the future too soon. In the meantime, there's also the matter
Well,
of
Mr. Chair, to confound Senator Drilon and our problem, there are also those who say that it is unfair to require the 20% for a retirement or pension benefit, that those who have not served the entire 20 years but served well and faithfully should also derive some kind of pension. But the amounts get bigger and bigger. They're just beyond comprehension at this point.
well, Senator Jalan and I have discussed this before, if I'm not mistaken, even in the previous Congress, and I agree with him totally. We both agree on this matter. I think there should really be a complete 20-year before they get into any kind of retirement. Um Now, I think Secretary Lorenzana is logged in. Uh, Secretary of Defense Lorenzana, are you on board? Welcome if you are on board. Secretary Del, are you there? Well, I'm sure he's going to sound off the moment he's there. And also Lieutenant General Roberto Ancon recently logged in as well. Uh, Now, the other comment that I made, I think I don't know if you caught it, is there was a comment made by the committee that studied uh, the bill on the retirement, was that they were saying that it should remain at 56. And I did say very, very openly that I think the attrition system will take care of that, and that I would say that they should go until 65 if they are qualified. But if they don't make the attrition, they will retire. I think 56 is too young an age for retirement, gentlemen. Now, the table is open for you to make any comments on what has been reported to us, so that if we can agree here, hopefully we can pass this for the committee report, complete the committee report, and begin to discuss it in the plenary. Are there any comments, gentlemen and ladies? Just raise your hand and state your name and position. Yes, Vice Admiral.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Your Honor, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
I just would like to comment, sir, on one of your statement that the armed forces should maintain 1% of its strength for officers. I do not know how that figure came out, but my research indicates, sir, that we can never have a 1% officer strength in comparison with the entire strength of the armed forces. In the US, for example, the officer to enlisted strength ratio is 12.5% in 1965, and now it is raised to 17.5%. Well, what I'm saying, sir, is that 1% would be too small, or a ratio for officers to enlisted. I would suggest, sir, that probably we should go as much as 10 to 12% of the strength of the armed forces dedicated to the officer corps strength. Now,
If I
as to
may,
the, yes, sir.
excuse me, if I may, that suggestion never came from me. The 1% came from, I believe, Secretary De Villa, DND, and from DND. And the report here was submitted pertaining to attributing that statement to me came from the simulation report. I think 1% will indeed be too low, and I agree with you. But certainly, we cannot have too many chiefs and with very few Indians, and that has been the case. It cannot be a policy of accommodation, but the rank must be earned as far as this representation would like to humbly prefer, Your Honor. So the table is still open to that on how many we should have in terms of a ratio of officers to enlisted men. Are there any other comments?
From the Department of Defense, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, I'm Undersecretary Luna of the Department of National Defense. Probably the 1% being referred to is the 1% of the officers' corps shall be the general or plug officers. Maybe that's what was being referred to. 1% of the officers' corps. We have now 13,000 officers. So if it's 1% of the officers' corps strength, that will be 130 general officers or plug officers. So probably that's the 1% that's being referred to, sir.
And what do you think of that, sir? Would that be too little or too many?
That's our recommendation, sir, from the Secretary of National Defense.
So 130 flag officers.
Yes, sir.
Then I tend to agree with that. Maybe with just a little bit of the tweaking of the numbers depending on the need. But certainly, we cannot have too many generals, too many positions for our military. I think we should continue to foment the rise of our younger officers and make sure that we keep as many of the trained officers that will come out. There's also another point here on the matter of the academy superintendent, where originally we said 4 years, but the recommendation is that it should be only 3 years, not 4 years. Are there any comments on that? Yes,
Of National Defense, sir. Sir, the reason why we're recommending 4 years, sir, so that the superintendent of the Philippine Military Academy will be able to supervise the training and education of one batch of cadets from first year to fourth year, so that he will have a complete supervision of one whole batch. So we are asking or requesting that the superintendent PMA be given a term of duty of 4 years. But he will not be, he cannot be a candidate anymore to be a chief of staff. He will retire as superintendent of the Philippine Military Academy.
Because one of my concerns is he might be creating a clique within the military of the 4-year people, a 4-year class that he has. But since he will not be anymore recommended for chief of staff, I think that more or less softens the blow. Does anybody else agree with that or disagree with that? Admiral Farola, General Farola of the Air Force, and Ambassador Farola. Go ahead.
Senator Trilon, Senator Marcos. I was for the 4-year term for the superintendent, mainly to put him at par with the presidents of our state universities and colleges. I think that in the case of our state universities and colleges, they not only have a 4-year term, but they're eligible for another reappointment of 4 years. That gives you an idea of the importance that we give to people in the field of education, where it concerns the training, education, and development of our officer corps in the case of the Philippine Military Academy. And I would recommend the 4-year term for the PMA superintendent. And if I may go, Mr. Chairman, to
Sir, please do.
a related topic, I was wondering if anybody or any office has made a study on what has been the impact of the surge in the number of our general officers, flag officers in the armed forces in the past few years with regards to our pension, the budget for our pensions, because it seems to me that there has been a large increase in the number of general officers, which is a very heavy burden on the pension fund if we take into account the amounts that are now being provided for general officers. I'm not saying that this should be reduced, but I'm wondering just what has been the effect of this large increase in the number of general officers in the armed forces as to be a heavy drain on our pension fund. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ambassador Ferrolan. The points are very well taken on the matter of the 4 years. You're putting it at par with other state colleges and institutions, or even private colleges and institutions and universities. And the point on the number of flag officers really puts a heavy burden on the pension. I think it's almost a no-brainer, pardon the expression, to see to it that when somebody retires, especially with the advances in or with the increases in salaries, the burden on the pension fund is dramatically increased, especially since we're practically going to start all over again because of the debacle of the Armed Forces Retirement Board, retirement service. Certainly, the if we increase the retirement of officers, including the attrition system, the pressure on the pension fund will be eased quite a bit. That's just my point, but I'm always ready to listen to all the others here present. Anyway, we are still going to have to. Your point, sir, will be brought in, I'm sure, by Senator Jolon and myself and Senator Marcos when we start meeting on the pension of officers. The Senate is treating that very, very seriously, and we are all very concerned about it. Would you like to follow up, sir?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, Mr. Chairman. May I say that I am deeply appreciative of the pension increase that was given to us last year. It was really a heaven sent because we've been waiting for it for a long time. And so I raised the question of the pension not because I do not appreciate the amount that has been allotted to us, but because I was thinking maybe that there were too many general officers in the armed forces at this point. I think about 180 180 general officers in the armed forces. And perhaps we should take a look at that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, General Adan. General Adan is recognized. General Adan, he might be still on mute. General
Good
Adan.
afternoon. Good afternoon, Senator Gordon, Senator Marcos, Senator Drilon. I'm General Adan, retired. I see a natural consequence of the new bill that's being proposed to the budget required for pensioners. Because under this new bill, under this bill, a chief of staff will have to work for 2 years. Okay. In the current system, the revolving door practice, assuming a chief of staff only serves for 6 months, some even 3 months, you will have at least 2 4-star generals per year. In 3 years' time, you will have 3 times 2, 6 4-star generals retiring. Whereas, if the Senate bill is passed, as suggested with a 3-year term, there is only 1 4-star retiring in 3 years' time. You can immediately see the budget effect. The speed with which retiring at a higher rank will be dampened because there is only 1 4-star general retiring in 3 years, the chief of staff. Whereas in the current system, revolving door, at 6 months per chief of staff, you have 6, 3 years. So immediately you can see the effect of the current proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Point is indeed hits the target and hits the mark. I agree with you. Are there any other comments from the resource persons?
From the Defense Department, sir.
Secretary Luna, go ahead, please.
Sir, you mentioned earlier that you were going to give a fixed term of office for some positions. You included the Philippine Marine Corps, the Commandant of the Special Operations Command, and the Commander of the Cyber Security Command. As of now, sir, as far as the Cyber Security Command is concerned, we do not have that organization yet. We only have a cyber group which is being commanded by a lieutenant colonel. We are still starting with the cybersecurity capability. With regards to the Special Operations Command, this is under the Philippine Army, and it is being commanded by a 2-star general. And the Philippine Marine Corps is also under the Philippine Navy. So in our recommendation to your committee, sir, we did not include these 3 positions to be given tour of duty. Yes, sir.
Forgive me for interrupting, Secretary Luna. That is the statement made by the simulation committee, not by me. I just read the simulation committee report. That's not me. And certainly I don't agree with that.
Okay, sir. So that's also our recommendation, sir. Do not include those 3 positions in the fixed term of office or position. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. The statement I made, just to be clear, once and for all, was simply to report on what the simulation committee submitted to this representation. And I'm sorry if I caused some misunderstandings, including the 0.1%. That is not my position. And we agree with the Defense Department's recommendation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments, please? I would like to go back to the Philippine Military Academy because that has got to be taken up. Does everybody agree? Can we take a poll or raise of hands should we keep the Philippine Military Academy superintendent for 4 years? Those in favor of having it for 4 years, the alternative being against is 3 years. Those for 4 years, please raise your hand now so we can see you. I see Secretary Parola raising his hand. Put yourselves on video so we can see your hand. Secretary Luna, are you against it, or are you for 4 years or 3 years? Because I heard you say you were for 4 years earlier. Yes, okay, that's 3. Vice Admiral, are you for 4 years or 3 years?
Our recommendation, sir, is 4 years.
Oh, so you're for 4 years. So
Yes,
far,
sir.
everybody's for 4 years. Anybody else? Please put yourself on video so we can see you. All the others, please put yourself on video and then raise your hand if you're for 4. Yes, that's sino?
Valencia, Renato.
Rene Valencia, whom I met in PMA many years ago. Thank you. 4 years. And the other one here on the left is Philippine Navy. Ano ba na?
Bordado.
Dado.
Bordado.
Boy Dado. That's 6 votes. 6 na, no?
Apo.
And anybody else? So there are a number of you here. So anybody for 3 years? Vice Admiral Marayag is for 3. No, I thought you said 4 years. Vice Admiral, you said 4 years. You voted for 4 years.
3 years, sir.
4
3
years.
years.
3 years. Oh, so you're changing your vote. Okay. Well, okay. And Edadan, are you for 3 years or 4 years? 4. All right. And anybody else?
Are you-
Edadan is for 4 years. So, are there any more votes? No more? Ano ba? Vice Admiral, no, that's not Admiral Cusi. Alan Ferdinand Cusi ba yan? Yes, of course, it's going to be for 4 years.
Sir, sir, may I inhibit? May I respectfully inhibit myself, sir? Due to conflict of interest, I am
It's
the
very,
president.
very gentlemanly of yours. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Very,
Thank
very cavalier of yours. Thank you.
you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
17 hours.
Who? Anybody else? All right. Okay. So it looks like we're going to go 4 years. And Senator Drilon, are you for 4 years?
That's just a question, or just a clarification. When we say 4 years for the PMA superintendent, if the superintendent reaches retirement age before 4 years, he finishes his term.
That's right.
In other words, just like the chief of staff, who reaches retirement age during the 3-year term, he will be allowed to finish his 3 years, unless, of course, the president, for loss of confidence, would replace him. In the case of the PMA superintendent, the same rule will apply, meaning 4 years, even if as a term. That's for clarification, Mr. Chair?
That's correct. You're correct. After 4 years, he can no longer be appointed to any other position. He's retired.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So you're for 4 years then.
I will be with the chairman, whatever the chairman says. No, but that's the committee we're trying to get a consensus. And it would appear,
Thank you.
chairman,
I tried to get
we should
consensus
that-
here.
that the
Senator
consensus
Marcos, are you okay with 4 years?
the consensus among our resource persons, if I get it correctly, is that 4 years as a term for the PMI superintendent is the most viable, acceptable to those involved. So,
it being understood that he will no longer be appointed, he's retired after that.
and yeah, but yes, not only that, that if he reaches retirement age while he is serving as superintendent, the 4 years he will be allowed to finish his 4-year term, notwithstanding his reaching the compulsory age of retirement. We would like to be clarified. I see this representative of the Department of National Defense disagreeing. I have no view. I just wanted to get a clarification from our resource persons as to what is the consensus. My specific question is, assuming the PMA superintendent, which has a term, whose term is for 4 years, reaches retirement age before completing his 4 years, will he be allowed to complete his term of 4 years? Is that the consensus, or is that the rule that is being recommended by our resource persons?
I will ask the others what they think. I have my own view, and I don't mind saying it that he should be allowed to finish his 4 years, and then he can no longer go on. That's it. He has to finish the 4 years, even if he's reached retirement age. General Farolan, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Senator Drilon has a point there. It has to be clarified because on the draft that we have prepared, it says here, the superintendent of the Philippine Military Academy shall have a fixed term of 4 years, provided that an officer eligible for appointment shall have a minimum remaining active service of 4 years. It doesn't talk of extending an officer who does not have enough years, 4 years. So, in my understanding here is that whoever is appointed superintendent of the Philippine Military Academy should have a minimum of 4 years, so as to enable him to complete the 4 years that we are giving him. He should not have been appointed if he has less than 4 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Daniel, comment?
Thank you, General Farolan, for Ambassador for that clarification. In other words, an officer who has less than 4 years remaining in his service is disqualified from being appointed as a PMA superintendent. That's very clear. That's the implication of that rule. Yes, we're clarified, Mr. Chairman.
But I was also musing that if he is the best for the position, if the president so desires to appoint him, even if he has 2 years left in his career, he can finish the 4 years but not be appointed anymore. That is my view, and I could be countermanded by the thinking of the others, because the Philippine Military Academy is far too important an institution. Of course, the president should not appoint him if he knows that he only has 2 years left, if there are other choices. But that's only my view. We're going to vote on that anyway later on. Secretary Cardoso?
Yes, sir. But there is another provision as provided for in this proposed bill that this superintendent of PMA will have a rank of lieutenant general, and he will be exempted from the maximum tenure in grade. He can, because the maximum tenure of grade of the 3-star generals is only 3 years. So he will be the only one exempted from that 3-year maximum tenure in grade provision. Thank you, sir.
Can you further clarify that? Do you think he should have 4 years?
Note, sir, that in the other provision of the proposed bill, we have it maximum tenure in grade.
Yes.
For lieutenant general, it's only 3 years.
3 years, yes.
3 years. So that means because the superintendent PMA as a rank of Lieutenant General, if we will follow the maximum tenure and grade, he can only have 3 years. That's why we should have a provision that the Superintendent PMA should be exempted from the provision of the maximum tenure and grade of 3 years for Lieutenant General.
Yes, you're correct. I think that should really be as an exemption. Nothing is cast in stone until we have all signed the committee report here. So, like I said earlier, in my view, if he's appointed there, he will be an exception to the 3-year tenuring grade. He'll be the only one. Are we agreed on that? I can see General Flora nodding his head. General Adan, you agree with that? Please.
Mr. Chairman, yes.
Yes, sir.
I agree with Yusek Luna that the Superintendent PMA should be exempted from the 3-year timing grade of Lieutenant General. He's the only one to be exempted because of that provision.
So we will have language to that effect as an amendment to the proposed
Mr. Chair.
piece of
Yes, Mr.
legislation.
Yes.
Question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Dillon, go ahead, please.
If we are going to exempt the PMA superintendent from the 3-year term of being term in tenure in grade, is it not inconsistent with the requirement that he must have 4 years of service, or at least 4 years remaining in service? Just a question. Why is there a distinction? Shouldn't we also extend the superintendent of the PMA to enable him to complete his term, regardless of his retirement age? I'm just raising a question for the consideration of our resource speakers. If I would repeat, if we are exempting him from the number of years of being in being in tenure in grade, why are we not exempting him from the from the compulsory retirement by requiring that he must have at least 4 more years of service, and disqualifying in effect an officer with only 3 years of service can no longer be appointed?
I would like to make a statement again. I've always been a risk taker, you know that, Senator Dillon. My point here, and I'd like to listen to the others, of course. My only point there is that there must be somebody that the armed forces must look into, and there are 2 people that they are the beacons of exemplary leadership. The PMA is the college or that creates a professional military, and that the law allows him that kind of a privilege that he will get that 4-year exemption along with the chief of staff. That is my reason for that. That shows that when you are appointed the PMA, you have practically the distinction of being one of the most respected officers of the military, and everybody looks up to you because the young people who are going to be the future officers of our military are going to study there. That is just my logic, Mr. President. I could be overruled. Are there any comments? Did I see anybody raising their hand?
Yeah. Yes. Can I have the rationale for this? In other words, Mr. Chairman, we are exempting the Lieutenant General who is appointed as PMA superintendent from the 3-year tenure in grade. But we are not applying that rule insofar as the retirement age is concerned, so that he cannot be appointed as superintendent if he has less than 4 years. So we would like to know the rationale for this difference between the 2 situations.
You're correct. The assumption is, as far as I'm concerned, that he still has years to serve. That was the premise that was made earlier. That he still has years to serve. The retirement age under the Constitution is very clear. Only the chief of staff can be extended. If the gentleman concerned that is going to be appointed as chief, as a head of the premier educational institution of the military, is concerned, it is assumed that he still has years to serve, but he will be the only one that will be allowed to have 4 years to serve, after which he can go off into the sunset. That would be what I intended, because I would like to see people looked up to in the military as a soldier. I don't know if that's enough rationale for that. General Farola? Yes, General Farola, you recognize, sir.
I would like to
You're on mute. Yes, sir.
I would like to bring up an example which I came across recently. Um, One of the previous superintendents of the U.S. Military Academy was a fellow called Andrew Goodpaster. He last served as NATO commander before retiring. He was retired as a four-star general, but after a few years, they thought he was so good an officer that they wanted him recalled to duty as superintendent of the U.S. Military Academy. So they called him back to duty with the rank of lieutenant general, 3 stars. He retired already with 4 stars, and yet he was willing to come back as superintendent with only 3 stars. And they made it possible by declaring that the slot of lieutenant general of the U.S. Military Academy would not be included in the quota for lieutenant generals. In other words, it was out of the quota that is provided for this particular rank, just to get him in. So I was wondering if this could be some solution similar to the example I gave. They removed the 3-star quota in the U.S. Military Academy out of the normal quota for 3-star generals, just so he could continue. And by the way, after he completed his 4-year tour of duty as U.S. Military Academy Superintendent, he was retired for the second time. But he was retired as a full general, the same rank at which he first retired as NATO commander. Thank you.
Well, nothing could bring down a good man, I suppose. But again, like I said, the post of head of the military academy is a very superlative post. And I suppose all armies of the world would like to get the best and the brightest, and he should be given a certain leeway or allowances for being appointed thereat. Of course, we cannot avoid the constitutional prohibition that only the chief of staff can be extended. I'm only saying that when I say that he was appointed, let's say he still has years to go to 65, he can retire already because he has reached the pinnacle of his career, and the only other pinnacle is the chief of staff, which, if the president so desires, he can appoint under extenuous circumstances. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Who's the gentleman raising his hand? Rene, is that you, Rene Valencia? Rene, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. No, I'm not. I maybe I'm muted, but I'm not. Can you hear me now, Mr. Chair?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, as a management practitioner, I think we can simplify it by giving the same fixed term as that of the
Uh, I'm almost tempted to come up with a discussion of the graduates of the Philippine Military Academy prior to martial law and after the martial law, because when I was in the ROTC, we would go up to the Philippine Military Academy, meet with them, and have debates with them, play basketball games with them, and all kinds, and even compete with visiting coleadas from Philippine Women's University. And this is just during the time of Cavalier Flider and Cavalier Valencia, who is here with us. And that was a different academy. Something happened when there was a coup d'etat that occurred, and I think the military became a little bit more, not a little bit more, but a lot more political. And then he started having, some of them forgot, I'm not generalizing, but the moral code somehow, the honor code somehow fell along the wayside. And that is really regrettable. I yearn for those days because I really looked up to the military men and women, sila General Yan, sila General Ilato, and all the other generals. In fact, there were even non-academy graduates who became four-star chiefs of staff that did very well. And that's why, to me, this is a very important discussion we're having to make sure that the Philippine Military Academy is treated with the right leadership and the right tenure and the right, the general is correct when he says you're really running a well-rounded institution, co-ed, you're teaching philosophy and, values and ethics, and at the same time, you're teaching people to make war. You're teaching about military history and other things. And you really need somebody who is really superlative in his skills to be able to make sure that the military, the graduates, will be people that we can look up to. Will be able to say no to corruption. Will be able to stand his ground in terms of following lawful orders and not go beyond what is against the Constitution. And more and more as I've gotten older, I've seen that has changed. And I used to be taught that the military, the religious order, the religious class, as well as the educational class were the three major institutions in the country, and the military was always there. So I just want to say that I would like to maintain my position that it should be 4 years. In fact, the academy should have somebody that they can look at. I think the competitive advantage of having a class selected by the best and the brightest to lead a 4-year class of cadets. That is something that is the idealistic. I don't know if it will happen in reality because sometimes presidents themselves have forgotten any form of code of honor. And that is sad, but that is the way our democracy works. So I guess the long and the short of it is we must all have to decide on what we do. And I think I've mentioned my side. I don't know how the committee will side. I think Frank Relon, and I rarely see him. I rarely see him mulling his decision. I know that he has a decision in mind, but he's never in want in terms of making the right decision in the country, and that's why I respect him a lot. And I don't have to flatter him. In fact, we do a lot of thumping against each other, but the respect is always there. So I think that it is important that everyone speaks up with this very, very important matter of educating the right leaders of our military. And it's not a question of years; it's a question of quality. It's a question of character, as you said. I was kind of sad when you used character last when you recited some of the important aspects of being a head of the institution. I think it should have been first right away. In America, they say duty, honor, country. And I think the sense of duty should be there. I'm not faulting you with that, General Kusi. I admire you for what you said and for what you stated. I just want to make sure that we vote correctly or we give our voices correctly here so that we can make the right decision. Because no point in extending the chief of staff for up to beyond even 65. No, but what is most important is the rank and file. The long gray line must be straight, disciplined, and always in order, not only in marching, but also in their values and in their way of life. Thank you. I'm sorry for giving a little speech there. You were going to say something, General Kusi? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I failed to mention the superintendent's role in character development. The superintendent's vision must encompass the idea that leadership and character development stands at the forefront of everything that takes place at the academy. And the character part of the leadership development is the most challenging. Each and every word, action, and mannerism of the superintendent sets a tone and establishes what's important. Indeed, the superintendent PMA can never not lead. For an institution charged with developing leaders of character, being of exemplary character and professionalism is fundamental to the roles of the superintendent. Character is to be modeled in every venue and ethical conduct demanded everywhere and at all times in the academy. Since the superintendent is responsible for developing leaders, developing the character of his or her charges is of primary importance to the entire leadership team. And since character development takes place during tests in every area of life as a cadet, Air Force cadet, or cadet midshipman, leaders in every endeavor, faculty, company tactical officers and NCO, coaches, officer representatives assigned to sports teams, and leaders within the corps, brigade, company, platoon, and squad all have a leadership role to play. The academy teaches leadership and ethics in and out the classroom. Certainly, this is important, but even those involved in the teaching, the tactical officers and the civilian instructors are inclined to say there is a limit to what can be taught with regard to leadership and character. Rules can be taught, compliance enforced, and consequences realized. But let me be clear, however, that character development is more about inculcating and absorbing the values of integrity and selflessness and seeking to live a life consistent with those values after graduation. That is a challenge to be addressed by the superintendent PMA and the whole PMA community with each incoming class and throughout the academy. Thank you, sir.
Very well spoken, sir. Very well spoken, sir. Thank you very much. I think for that alone, this meeting has been well worth it. Those are indeed values to be aimed for and live for, General. And I'm glad you are in our armed forces. So again, the issue is still that from time to time, when there are things that happen, we must go back to the academy and find out what happened wrong. For example, during the coup d'etat that took place. What happens wrong when some of our generals are caught, for example, bringing dollars to Russia, or some of our generals are caught, for example, doing things that they ought not to do, such as murder other people. Or these are things that I think will go back to the academy, and a good superintendent will be alert to make sure that he puts his ship on even keel right away when there's such a thing like that may happen. Those are just points that I'd like to make here as well. That's why I thought I'd dwell on this a little bit longer than I should. Forgive me for doing so. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Yes, sir. Gentlemen, wearing the dark.
Sir, I'm Commander Lopez of the Armed Forces Cyber Group, sir.
What? Cybercrime.
I'm with the Armed Forces Cyber Group, sir.
Yes, of course.
Yes, sir. I would just like to register some points. I don't know how will this matter with the proposed bill, but first of all, sir, is the cyber domain is being is already declared by the armed forces as another domain of armed forces operations. So if there is land domain, air domain, maritime domain, there is cyber domain now. And in fact, the cyber domain cuts across all these other domains. And the cyber group, which is intended to become a command later on, hopefully will expand to something that will be able to do its mandate as mandated by law. First of all, sir, I would like to say that it should probably not be called AAP Cyber Security Command, but AAP Cyber Command, because cybersecurity would mean probably just looking into the networks within the armed forces. The AAP Cyber Command is mandated to more of a cyber defense in general. So that's my first point, sir. Second, sir, is regarding PMA. I graduated from that institution in 1992, and I am still commander because there is a provision that promotion of officers with pending case will not be given. So probably one of the provisions that this bill should consider, sir, is the promotion of officers with pending case. That's more personal, especially when I heard about the mention of the word murder. I'm charged of murder over a crime that does not exist, actually. So it becomes quite personal. I couldn't help myself but speak up, sir. Thank you, sir.
This is a commander, this is a democracy still, and I'm glad you spoke up. You'll have your day in court, I'm sure, unless you've already had your day in court. Cyber Command is certainly the command of the future, and it's going to be sooner rather than later. Unfortunately, we're not ready yet for it to become one of the service commands that will be part of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So, nonetheless, thank you for your comments. Can we just go on to just a few more comments that I need for enlisted personnel? For enlisted personnel, the retirement age is 56, regardless of rank. And then I go back to the commissioned officers. The commissioned officers will retire at the age of 62, and the chief of staff at 65. Are we all in favor that non-commissioned officers should be retiring at the age of 56, including the sergeant majors of the Republic, especially the top kicks of the military. Does that mean that we are in agreement that we really do have a great set of non-commissioned officers who are the connecting connecting individuals between the officers and the enlisted men? And if we have some very good ones, either because of their skill in the Air Force, for example, as mechanics or technical people, or in the ships as chief of the boat. These are things that I think we have to consider. Otherwise, we will just remain at 56. Are we agreed on that? The the non-commissioned officers will be retired at 56. Are there any comments on that? To be sure, all the other countries have their retirement age for non-commissioned officers average like 55 or 56. So do we want to be different from them, or do we just stay at 56? Comments, gentlemen? Yes, Ed. General Adan? You're on mute. Can you unmute, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe we can stick to the age 56 for enlisted men. The current practice...
Non-commissioned. Enlisted men is 56.
Non-commissioned. Yes. Yes. Because the position...
I would be on mute. Yeah, so they can't hear you. Okay.
Because the positions being held by our senior NCOs up to GHQ are that of sergeant majors, chief sergeant majors. These are not policy making positions. These are not long-term planning positions, but they are morale related. They're supposed to be model soldiers, which our troops emulate or should emulate. So I think age 56 would be the right age for their retirement. We don't want to see models who are already in their most senior years, like 60 years old, precisely because of the role they play. It has to be tied up to the role they have to do as models, as icons of top soldiers. And these are the roles of the sergeant majors. They're not into deep management, policy making and all that. I think that's the rationale that I could advance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, General Dan. Any other comments, please? Yes, Secretary Luna.
Yes, sir. As far as the department is concerned, we are 456 years old, and the main reason is to keep our armed forces young, especially the enlisted personnel. We have to keep our armed forces young, just like the armed forces of other countries, because as of now, the average age of our enlisted personnel is already 47. This is too old. And we have here a recommended provision for maximum tenure of grade of enlisted personnel from E1 to E10. E1 is the private and E10 is the highest rank that they can get into. And by following this maximum tenure and grade, we will be implementing an attrition policy that so that as you go up, you attain this maximum positions, maximum tenure and grade, you will be attrited if you're not promoted to the next higher grade, such that those who will get to the rank of E8, E9, E10 will be very few already. So we keep the lower rank of the pyramid of the enlisted personnel as young as possible so that our cutting edge, the fighting force, we have young enlisted personnel. Thank you, Your Honor.
Points very well taken. Thank you, Secretary. I spoke to Secretary Lorenzana and he had the same views earlier this morning. May we have other comments and then we can go on and complete this so that we can sign the report if we have to already. Any other comments, please? If, okay, I'll go to another point. I think we're agreed on 56. Commissioned officers will retire at 62. Is that good enough for you, or 60 or 62? I think 62 will be best, I think. If there are no comments, we'll keep it at 62 then. And the Chief of Staff at 65. I put something on the screen. Can you take a look at it? If that's agreeable to you, we can all, if nobody has any comments, this will be what will be adopted. All right. If there are none, then this will be what will be adopted. 56 years old for enlisted personnel, all the way up to Master Sergeant. 62 years old. Of course, this is all subject to attrition or retriting. 62 years old for senior non-commissioned officers with the rank of Sergeant, Master Sergeant. No, that they are all 56. That is we did not agree on 62 for Master Sergeant and Sergeant Majors. They will be at 56 as well. And for commissioned officers, it will be 62. And then for the Chief of Staff, it will be 65 years of age.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. Yes, Senator Amy.
I'm here. Yes, I recall from the last meeting, however, that 56 we all agreed was too young, but 65 was too old. Are we changing our opinion on that? Because we were advised by one of the military officers, I cannot recall now, that as it stands, we have one of the older armed forces in the region.
Indeed, we are insofar as the enlisted is concerned.
Yes.
And that's why we maintain it at 56. But 56 is too young for commissioned officers.
Yes,
so we want that to go to 62. And we decided on 62. And only the Chief of Staff remains at 65. And that's it.
So 65 is not all the commissioned officers, because that's what it said on the slide.
Yeah, that's wrong.
I see.
Yeah, you corrected that. Yes.
It's just the Chief of Staff on his own.
That's right. Sole
Okay.
one.
I see.
And if you want to appoint the Philippine Military Academy, we would have to put up language to the effect that only those who will have ages that during their 4 years that will not go beyond 65 can be appointed to the Philippine Military Academy as superintendent. Is that agreeable to everybody? Yes, Secretary Luna.
Sir, as I mentioned earlier, the position of the DNDAP is for the enlisted personnel up to the age 56 only, not 62.
That's what I said.
So nobody will go up to 62.
I'm going to inject a little humor. You know what they say about people who are hard of hearing?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Because I saw it there. And for the officers, those who are from for the officers, they will, for the rank of up to colonel, the retirement age is 56. Also, only the general officers can go beyond 56.
Oh, that's new to me. Because there's an attrition period for colonels. I think they have to be a general within 3 years.
The tenure in grade 4 colonel, sir, is 9 years.
Let me just look at my notes, please. Tenure is 3 years. Lieutenant General is 3 years. Major General is 3 years. Brigadier General is 3 years. And for Colonel, 06, 6 years.
9 years.
So maximum tenure in grade is 9 years.
9 years, sir.
That will be that will be what year? What age? 56.
56, sir.
Isn't that too young? I think that's a bit too young. So
Yes, sir. That's why we have a provision that those going beyond colonels can go beyond 56, and the chief of staff can go up to 65.
So a full colonel can retire at 56. Must retire at 56. That doesn't help the pension plan too much. Di ba? Kung 56 yan napakabata.
Wala, pareho rin na.
Pareho rin.
Oo. Walang tulong yun eh.
Ako, I would, from Colonel, Brigadier General, 62, no? Captain would be, well, as you say, 56. Is everybody agreed on that? I see Edadan nodding his head. And I see a questioning look from Admiral Marayag. Ano ba? 56 ba tayo sa Colonel? Ed? Unmute yourself, please. Mute, yeah, go ahead, Ed. Unmute, please, Ed. Ed, we can't hear you. Ed, please unmute.
Okay, thank you. It's the admin, I think, that controls the muting. Yes, Mr. Chair, I believe after 9 years as a full colonel and he reaches 56 and he doesn't get promoted to general, that's the end. What we're trying to, in the system that's being introduced, it can be summed up into you either go up or you're out. If you don't get promoted to general and you have 9 years as colonel, then you're out because the positions are filled up already with the generals filling the positions because of their fixed tenure. So really, only the best really goes up.
Yes.
And if you're not promoted, then you're out. I think that's the paradigm that we're establishing.
Understood, sir. Thank you. Anybody else has a point? I'm okay with that. So if there are no other points, we'll keep it at that with the maximum tenure in grade 9 years. If you don't get up, you're out after 9 years, right?
Yes. Yes, Mr.
All
Chair.
right. Thank you. And if you're a lieutenant colonel, if you don't get in 7 years, you don't get promoted to colonel, you're out as well. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, and so forth and so on. Are there any other comments? Are there? I think we're done. With the permission of my colleagues here, are we ready to submit the report? Is Frank Dillon still there? Amy, you're okay? Are you going to move to
Yes,
submit
I
the
was
report?
going to move, yes, sir. I was going to move to draft the committee report with the end in view also of doing so in the context of the simulations and other studies to be done regarding the retirement and pension fund so that they'll all go hand in hand for. But I'm sure the good chairman will do that. So with that, we endorse the finalizing of our committee report and hope that the good chair has inspiring time with this difficult question.
Thank you, Senator Amy. We'd like to thank all the, with that, we are going to submit this. I hope this really becomes a game changer. I like the words of Ambassador General Farolan when he said they've been waiting for this for a long time. And so with Secretary Farola, Secretary De Lorenzana, and many of you, and we thank you for your very, very candid and very, very worthwhile and, thought of recommendations. We hope that we can come up with a very, very good bill. Please follow through during the debates on the plenary. And I think there's also another bill in the House. So if you have your friends in the House, please follow through as well. May I know the name of the cyber group commander? I don't have his name here.
Commander Reynaldo Lopez, sir.
Reynaldo Lopez. All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Please free to call me anytime if you have other comments. You can submit it to the committee as soon as possible. In the meantime, I will give you the advice as Senator Marcos has said it very well. We will write the committee report. So if we have comments, and then we can still try to put it in if it's okay with us. It now belongs to the world of the senators. We've done with the resource speakers, and now it belongs to the world of the Senate, so that we can make the necessary corrections. Of course, we can still call on some of you if we need to get advice, if you're all willing to do that. On that note, we thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to have a great bunch of leaders of the armed forces. All of you have been stalwart and certainly intelligent and certainly sincere in your recommendations, and the committee salutes you. Thank you all very much. Mabuhay kayong lahat. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. Thank you all, and God bless you.
God bless you.
Salamat po. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.